Hello. Yes, it's a great pleasure.
Great. So you followed what happened in Parliament. This ritual, how much faith do you have in it? That it happens and they summon, and right now the Speaker says the Interior Minister is summoned to come there and give them assurances of their security. The President himself has said that the security should act quick and get the perpetrators. From where I sit, it does sound like this is ritual talk. It doesn't get us that much.
Well, thank you very much. Let me begin by expressing, similar to Kweku, my deepest condolences. First, to the family. I mean, this is a terrible, terrible, terrible incident. But also to the people of our dear country, Ghana, precisely because of the signal this murder sends about public safety and security in Ghana. But before I get to the ritualized expressions of we need protection for a segment of the population as against the generality of the population, I want to make a couple of points. First, relating to our appreciation and understanding of the types of threats that we face and the quality of the assessments that we make to be able to respond to and to prevent those threats, and to shift from a more reactive to a proactive set of interventions predicated on the use of intelligence. The second relates to the easy availability, proliferation, and use of small arms and light weapons. And I think you and I have spoken about these issues so many times that I truly sound like a broken record. The third issue is about the state of public safety. And I want to respond to Kweku's great point about election security and campaign security. But I want to add something small to it. It's about the issue of, first, the sensitivity and the knowledge that should be routinely available in terms of first aid and how to use first aid. Now, Kweku, if you remember, several years ago, I think there was a trip from Togo towards Accra where there was a presidential convoy that got into an accident and some people died precisely because there was no ambulance in the convoy, and then some people also bled to death. Since that tragic incident, and also when Mr. Kufuor's car overturned his armored vehicle, overturned, we don't seem to have learned from all those nearly tragic incidents about the role of first aid in our own vehicles. I think the rules and regulations around car registration in Ghana talks about the need for a first aid kit. If I'm correct.
You're right. Yeah.
The final point relates to the role of intelligence. We tend to think that intelligence must be some highly specialized use of information that only a segment of the population can have access to or can undertake. Granted that, yes, there are certain aspects of it that are very key. So let me start with the threat assessments first. And here I want to piggyback on Kweku's point about election security and campaign security. When one lives in a country where its neighbors, small arms flows, unemployment, a sense of exclusion is predominant, why and how do emerging threats manifest themselves? And here the statement by one of those who had access to guns and shot this MP is very poignant. The selection and targeting of particular individuals. And here I think I heard some MP talking about politically exposed persons. Politically exposed persons is not about the fact that you are in a certain position and therefore somebody wants to kill you. It's actually related to corruption. You see, so I think we need to be able to use the terminologies properly and not conflict them. That somebody is shot because it's a politically exposed person and is campaigning. No, except what that MP meant was that there's an element of corruption in this particular matter, which I don't think was the idea. So threat assessment, we need to get it well. And Kweku's point about the expanse of the country, issues of logistics, manpower are all very key. And it is because of that threat assessments are key, because that then leads us to say what types of law enforcement actions will lead to the types of desired results.
Yeah.
Last week, if I remember correctly, the Central Regional Minister, Duncan, was quite worried about the levels of crime, I think, in Kaswa and Budubura. So that either the Regional Security Council of the Central Region has been concerned about levels of crime, and these are not crimes that, just happen. These are firearms-related crimes. So there's a problem with availability of small arms, how it is registered, who has them, levels of concentration, the types of crimes that they are used for. Now, we know that crime and its relationship to small arms, has been growing because it's really very easy to get access to these guns. Well, let me talk a bit about the firearms, because one of the things that this conversation we are not talking about relates to where do these guns come from? How do people get access to them? What are the numbers that we are talking about? Small arms proliferation in Ghana, it's widespread, both as a hub for the sale and transshipment across our boundaries, but also certainly as a place where people come in to purchase these guns. So there are several towns in Ghana where one can have easy access to these guns. But also more disturbingly, the local manufacturing of these guns. So we need to get a better grasp of this point. When members of parliament raise their voices about insecurity and invite the minister to appear before them, whilst it's useful, also gives a sense of unease. Okay? How many murders have been committed in Ghana in the last, say, 6 months? And how often has the minister been invited? How often has Parliament raised issues of insecurity, general insecurity, or firearms-related insecurity on the floor of the House? Or how often does the Parliamentary Committee on Defense and Interior discuss these issues? Now, to go back to the last couple of weeks, when the attacks in Volta region happened, I think a coconut seller was shot, mistakenly. One would have thought that with that particular incident, there ought to have been an emergency session because the whole region was attacked, about 5-6 towns, a police station raided, almost 14 guns stolen, but we didn't hear Parliament's voice. Now, that creates a certain concern as to what Parliament thinks of the security of the general populace, but even more disturbingly, a wide swathe of Ghana that had been attacked and criminal actions undertaken. Now, precisely because of the challenge of small arms, not only in Ghana, but in West Africa, Ghana, as a signatory to the ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms, has been enjoined both by ECOWAS, but certainly by a cabinet decision to establish the Ghana National Small Arms Commission. The cabinet memo stated specifically that the National Commission should be a regulator. Unfortunately, we have a National Commission that only plays an advisory role, therefore incapable and doesn't have the teeth to regulate the import, the distribution, the marking, the tracing, the stockpile management of small arms.
Who does? Who has the regulatory mandate right now? And why is that entity not doing well that you would wish that the Small Arms Commission would rather do that?
Well, there's almost no. The regulatory powers are located within the Ministry of Interior. So let the death of J.B. Dankwa.
The Ministry of Interior, working with the IGP, only grants you the license to either import or hold arms and, so to speak. So what is the regulation really about? And the law requires that there should be...
We need the National Commission on Small Arms to regulate who gets the licenses. Okay, now it only plays an advisory role. Okay, so if these two murders by parliamentarians should teach a lesson, and it's only parliamentarians and the politicians who can change this, then they should equip and read to the National Commission to act as a regulator, independent, capable of saying...
The Small Arms Commission has oftentimes complained about the millions of guns, in hands that are not regulated. But the laws of this country require that the current process, as we have it, there's supposed to be a register. So if you are getting a gun and you are licensing it at any police station, we will have a national register where we know who has registered a gun and who has not renewed it at what time or the other. What differently would the Small Arms Commission do from what the present arrangement is in fighting the situation? Because we know that even under the current situation, there are thousands of guns unregistered.
Yes. No, there are lots of guns that are unregistered, precisely because less than 10 to 15% of guns that were registered initially comes back for the annual registration. Okay, that leaves a huge gap, and I think Kweku made a very great point about the capacity gaps or the challenges that the police service, for example, faces. Now, I am focusing and I'm concerned about gun availability, our import histories, plus the regulation of who should get a license, who can check when licenses have been renewed, and where these guns are. Precisely because the Small Arms Commission plays an advisory role. I mean, you can only add so much. People can decide to take it or not to take it. But that shift from an advisory to a regulatory role for the National Commission can only be done by the passage of law into law by Parliament.
The Commission has told us. The Commission has told us that in Ghana we have about 2.3 million firearms in private hands, and out of that number, 47% is unaccounted for. It tells me that they have the capacity to do some work. They simply may not have been able to do the work.
Well, we did the research for them with Japanese funding in 2014, 2015, when the document came out. I mean, when I say we, I'm talking about the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center, where we have specific dedicated courses on small arms management, border security. So one is to get the data that disaggregates where these guns are, what types, the ages of these guns, the levels of attrition, which we placed at 20%, that for these 2.3 million guns, if more guns don't come into the system over a 5-year period, we would see around 20% of them having been destroyed, stolen, lost, or what. The challenge for the Commission is that, yes, these figures are out in the public domain. We've managed to demonstrate which magazines and armories are well built, follows the international regulations. How do they take this data and then insist that people follow the rules, the laws, and that institutions are given the teeth, to manage small arms and light weapons in Ghana? So if we take the work that they've done with respect to the marking of guns that are available in Ghana, that allows the Commission then to be able to trace when these guns are lost.
Okay.
So there's a lot of work that we need to do relating to firearms availability, because all these crimes relating both to parliamentarians and ordinary people. And then the great point about election and campaign security this year is that most of those threats will come from people's availability or people's access to firearms.
Okay, so sorry, but I come back to that issue because I think that it's an area that the state doesn't seem to have paid sufficient attention to, or put in the necessary safeguards and solutions as far as small arms and weapons are concerned. And the reference to 2.3 million of these in private hands, and this you talk about, we are actually talking about research that was done sometime in 2014, and at the time we were told that there had been as much as 850% increase in the number of firearms in circulation in Ghana. We understand that about $3 trillion is spent each day in purchasing arms globally, and our part of the world is signaled to be one place where some of the guns come in. What should be done? Because once the guns are out there, and as at that time, even when they put the 2.3 million firearms in private hands and 47% unaccounted for, they said the number could actually be higher than that.
Yes.
So what do we do? What must we do concretely to avoid this situation where there are arms in people's homes and people's hands, and yet we don't know about it?
No, I think it's information, public information. And in all the 850% increase in availability is related to the original baseline survey.
Right.
That myself and Sowate and Imabrekwan did in 2004 for the government of Ghana and the UNDP.
2014? 14?
No, the original baseline survey was done in 2004.
Oh, I see.
So there are two baseline surveys.
Right.
Having a decade, the difference from the original baseline survey 2004-5, and then the last one 2014, I think, presented in 2015.
Right.
So there seems to be a certain romanticization around getting access to these guns and then using them. Okay.
Yeah. So my point basically, we have seen armed robbers. They have shot in broad daylight. They have gone into shops, held people hostage and shot right here in Ghana. They sped off and we couldn't arrest them and all of these things. So that's the thing. For as long as the arms are out there and we do not know who is holding them, we are at risk.
No, we are at a major risk. You see, and that is why this conversation should focus not only on the terribly unfortunate murder of my former student, but also on the dynamic. We need to understand the demand side. Why do people demand for these guns? And what are the dynamics driving demand? But even more importantly, the supply side. You see, because when we tend to take a very simplified approach to this, we overlook some of the critical dynamics. Now, and I'm happy Kweku is in the studio still. Now, several years ago, when Kofi Boakye was the police commander in Kumasi, he unraveled a transnational organized criminal group that were bringing in guns from as far as the Democratic Republic of Congo. There were people bringing in guns from La Côte d'Ivoire and elsewhere. We are one of the major importers of industrial explosives. Okay? So there is something that both makes us a demand-driven enclave with respect to small arms, but certainly also supplying those who need these guns. Okay? And I think it would be good if you get access to the 2015 or 2014 report, because we spent quite substantial amount of time looking at the quality of armories in Ghana or the magazines, looking at levels of leakages and the types of stockpile management that would protect all of us. With the exception of the military, we made specific recommendations as to how armories and magazines security could be improved. So, if we look at the leakages and the types of guns used in crime and medicine in Ghana, they are the industrially manufactured guns, that is the AK-47s that the secessionists stole, the pump-action guns, and then the locally manufactured guns, which over time are also becoming more and more effective. So that the management of our small arms becomes very central in the general protection of the citizenry.
Professor
members of parliament.
Professor Aning, maybe my very my very final question on the area of the proliferation of small arms, because you mentioned proliferation of arms, and you spoke about same as unlicensed being a major threat. Now, in my professional life, I've had the opportunity to deal with something in this regard, and I discover how the system doesn't seem to be that good. That even someone who wants to sort of surrender a gun has a lot of difficulty, and they may decide that, look, forget it, I'd rather keep it rather than surrender, because I want to surrender and I have to go through, frustration. And you have officers who have suggestions to you, even when you want to surrender it nicely. They have suggestions, because some of them are rather the persons who will direct those who need them to purchase. Now the armed robberies have continued to increase. In 2016, 2017, we saw the numbers that went up, and I think we're giving as much as 26.8% increase in armed robberies and murders. And it was directly linked to the arms that is in private hands. I don't know what the current figures are as far as the increase, but what would you advise that the IGP, the Interior Minister, the Small Arms Commission, and maybe some leadership from the presidency should do as, a quick measure to try to rein in this situation?
Well, the approach by the state of Ghana in terms of small arms and light weapons proliferation comes with quite some challenges. One is the legislation itself. The legislation really does not capture the complexity and the changing dynamics of small arms availability and proliferation. So the basic rules, I think, are from 1962 and 1972. So we need to look at the legislation. The second relates to the interventions that the state, over time, has sought to implement. Now, one is the weapons buyback programs. So if you remember, under President Kufuor, there was this massive program about a Tumosu, where the state would give some money, you bring your gun, you register it. I think we got less than 1,500 guns or so. Subsequently, there have been other interventions, rates in Asua, in Bukuram, that does not net more than 15 or 14 guns. The bottom line is that the huge chasm between what the state perceives as the need to draw these guns out and public perceptions of their own security and the feeling that they need to have access to these guns. So let me give some specifics apart from those two. I think we need intelligence gathering and analysis as essential component of trying to get guns out of society. And this should happen both at operational and strategic levels. At the operational level, and this relates to Kweku's concern about the size of the country and therefore the challenges for logistics and personnel. But we need to have crime officers studying the data related to criminals, crime suspects, incidents, issues, and trends. Issues and trends are very key. Now, these things do not happen as a matter of routine performance assessment. We need to have a unit or units, focusing on these things. By collecting and assessing this type of data, officers can identify the relationships and the connections between different crimes in different places. So, the speed with which almost every murder of an important person is related or it is classified as armed robbery in itself is very disturbing, because it diverts attention from the possible array of reasons that could have resulted or led to that murder. Okay? So that we need to understand the relationships and complex connections between different crimes in different places. Now, such approaches provide the insights that we need in understanding why what happens at particular times. You see, using such an intelligence approach means that we should be doing four main things that we have spent a lot of time on. One relates to strategic assessments. okay, tactical assessments, target profiles, and problem profiles. So if we take the problem profiles, for example, as I've said, the regional minister in Central Region, Mr. Duncan, a couple of days ago, was very concerned about levels of crime in the Kaswa Buduburam area. Okay, now I wonder whether the concern that he expressed is something that has been taken on by his Regional Security Council and said, what are the changing trends with the expansion of Kaswa in unplanned ways that leads to and contributes to crime? So we need to bring on board more nuanced, more differentiated,
and that also comes to the proactive policing you are talking about, because you said we are doing more reactive rather than proactive.
Yes.
Okay. So you were listing 4 points. I think you've listed one now. If you can just give us the points and then we move on.
And then target profiles.
Right.
Okay. Who are the people who are the targeted, or who are those who will be targeted or have the potential to be targeted? Okay. Now, if you look at the profiles of those who have been opportunistically targeted, but those who have specifically been targeted for what they do, okay, that also, helps us.
Okay.
Now, tactical assessments and then strategic assessments. What are the visions and missions of particular heads of units by law enforcement agents at a particular point in time? What do they seek to achieve so that the mission is sent down to officers who do the frontline fixing?
All right. Okay. So now please conclude on just a minute. The MPs, do we need to pay particular attention to their security? They are our representatives. We vote for them to go to Parliament to represent us.
Yes.
They deserve some special treatment, don't they?
No. Actually, it is their performance and their delivery in terms of placing the general security of the state at the top of their agenda. Because this is not new. It has been going on for a long time. That the public will say, wow, these are people that we voted for. They really do care. Let's provide them extra, protection. But once more, I'm asking these questions again. How often have they placed security on their agenda for discussion? How often have they spoken about the murders that Ghanaians are facing? How often have they spoken about the proliferation of small arms that threatens their ordinary, constituents? We are interested in protecting the parliamentarians, but it would be crucial and critical that they also, by their actions and words, send clear signals to the public.
They have asked the question. Why are we not doing equity? Why are we not treating them fairly? They are our elected representatives. They say judges are not elected, even though judges at a certain level are making policy and making law. We provide sufficient, as it were, this kind of security for them, as in police guards. Is that fair? A minister gets, this protection. Is it fair to them?
Yeah, no, I think it's very fair. Yeah.
Okay.
Let them demonstrate by the concerns that they show in terms of the debate on the floor of the House about the general security of the citizenry who voted for them in the first place. I don't think it's about the 275 police officers and then the cost. There is an ethical issue here. In the last 4 years, and I think your producer can check this from the Hansard, how often has security been on the agenda? How often has the murder of Ghanaian taxpayers being on the agenda. Often has small arms being on the agenda.
Okay.
There is a direct positive correlation.
Well, they've also asked the question legitimately, what exactly can they really do? Because we know that in this country, the executive president is like my friend Prof.Aning would say, is an imperial, president. He decides what has to be done, and they in Parliament, what do they do? Now, Koku. So let's conclude on this question. So where do you stand? Can't the nation commit to 275 extra police officers, train them to provide guard duties for these MPs? Is that too much to ask?
Well, I happen to depart from Prof when it comes to this question, and I've always been clear on that. The last time JB Dan question came, there was public debate all over, and you can see here I said MPs need some form of protection. This is my Joy Online, 10th February 2016. I asked for a very dispassionate interrogation of that issue. I indicated, and I've said it here, that it's a very unpopular request. It's thrown out into the public domain, you will never win. And there are good reasons for that. Prof is trying to bring some up. Let's go check the Hansard. How many times? They've done some. I mean, why? They approve loans and things to equip the police, the security services for their training and all that. But yes, perhaps it is not sufficient or has not been sufficiently communicated to the public. That look, this is what our MPs have been dealing with in terms of the general environment relative to security. Look, it makes sense to say that if you improve national security in terms of the general security situation, the MP who is a subset of it will also get the benefits. It makes sense.
Right.
But there are also specific cases where you try to say, look, what can I do to at least, offer some form of protection? That's why I was going by the categorization in terms of residential, institutional, campaign, which is a subset of election security. So a very difficult thing, just like with the ex-Garcia, no MP will win a public debate on that. And that's a very sad commentary, though. Okay. It may mean that perhaps we should be looking at the integrity lines of what our legislators and things are doing. But I am for some form of protection for members of parliament. Is
it fair, for example, for somebody to suggest that if the UN standard is that there should be one policeman for 500 people, then our MPs must ensure we have that before we get them, a guard each?
No, not mutually exclusive. It is how you go about it, the strategic thinking that goes into it, the tactical blending. It is not mutually exclusive. But I'm saying that, yes, creating conditions for general security for the population should be the first principle.
Right.
In so doing, these are legislators who are also doing certain things, and we've had experiences of some of them have been subjected to attacks, some ending in fatalities. Right. We cannot ignore that.
That's right.
We can't. So we've got to find a way, a means of doing it.
I'll be reading messages to you shortly. We are taking a break, and I'll read some of the messages to you. People are asking questions. They say, well, unless an MP is in trouble or some politician or big public person gets into this kind of trouble, we hardly, discuss these matters. Meanwhile, every day, ordinary citizens are being subjected to these circumstances. People are getting killed, and we don't talk about that in the manner we do when it gets to MPs, and they say that is unfair.
For instance, Ahmed Swali's murder
Ahmed Swali
was debated on the floor of the House.
Right.
I don't know if you are aware of that. On other incidents, Emmanuel Enin, former JJ, was debated. Yeah, it may be insufficient, and or perhaps have not been properly communicated. People sometimes don't take their, I can't blame them. How many people go and look for Hansard to try and do a research project on the feelings of MPs.
Right.
No.
So I'd like to say thank you very much, Professor Prof.Aning, for assisting us with your insights, as always, and expertise. We draw the curtains on this subject here and can only hope that the police will act swiftly and the general public will assist as much as possible so that the perpetrators will be apprehended. Yes, Kuku.
To the conspiracy theories to abate this whole trend. It's going on, left, right, center. We should rely on the police. Look, those with information should go and give the information to the police.
The conspiracy theory is what is emanating from the constituency, that it could have been masterminded by his opponent, then some say it could have been masterminded by internal
yes, it can distort police. People. It can distort police investigations. And then there's some information to that, I think, and it's difficult for a journalist talking this way because see, we all want information. Media houses, we go out there, the eyewitnesses, and everybody is talking to us.
Right.
But there are some particulars that should be channeled to the police. Sometimes, look, the kind of vehicles they were using, but pretend you didn't see it.
Okay.
Let's go give that information to the police. Okay. These armed robbers, they also listen to radio.
That's right.
If they get to know that even their vehicles and things were identified, they could do some things with it.
Okay.
You know? And then the last point, I'm not sure if I heard my brother Aruna Edrusu very well. Did he say that the JB Dankwa murderers had not been identified?
Yes,
the
that's
perpetrators?
what he said.
No, but that's a house of records. You should know that's not true. Some people are on trial for that exercise.
There's a person on trial.
Yes, there's a person on trial. So you cannot see.
But people have generally said this guy is a joke. I mean,
no, he's a joke relative to the so-called confessions he's making. He's been coached in prison to put that out there. That's total rubbish. You should go for the original things he said to the police and how he was busted. He had the MPs, the murdered MPs' phones, which he had gone to clean up. Okay, he himself had injuries on him. So if you don't have it, I have the police report here from day one.
Okay.
And so that one, look, we've all been to prison before. When you get in there, there are bigger lawyers in prison, quote unquote. They coach.
Okay.
And so you come and you pollute the whole case. You create unnecessary distortions.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, Abdul Malik Okubako. So we take a break, we'll return, and then I'll share your messages on this particular subject. After that, we will be looking at the question of the chiefs. Prof.Aning, did you want to say something before you go?
Two very quick questions relating to Kweku's point. One relates to being coached in prison. We need to use prison intelligence much more in our investigations. Second, it's about the nature of the conspiracy theories out there. We need better public-police relations so that we can share the critical information necessary for the proactive interventions.
I agree.
Okay. Thank you very much. Our condolences go to the family, particularly the wife and the mother. And I have a friendship with some people where the mother presently was taking. And I can tell you it's not an easy thing for the family. It's a very difficult time for them. We wish that the perpetrator will be found in good time. And then the system will teach whoever it is that you don't do this to your fellow human being. We'll be right back.